New York Times reporting allegations by numerous women who say the Hollywood mogul sexually harassed them, his alleged victims, over nearly 3 decades.
Longtime Today Show host Matt Lauer fired from NBC for alleged inappropriate sexual behavior in the workplace.
New allegations of sexual misconduct rocking the food industry. Another prominent restaurant entrepreneur is facing claims of harassment as more accusations emerge against Mario Batali.
Comedian Louis C.K. is the latest entertainer accused of inappropriate sexual behavior. 5 women made accusations against him in a new report by the New York Times.
Shocking allegations tonight against the former head physician of the U.S. women's Olympic gymnastics team, accused of sexually assaulting young girls in his care over a period of 19 years. Allegations of an extraordinary abuse of power against girls too young to understand what was happening to them and afraid to speak out.
We can't all be sluts. We can't all be asking for it.
I am here to give you permission to be angry.
This reality might not have to be our reality anymore.
The promises into sexual harassment.
Fox News cutting its ties with Bill Swift appearing in court today
on Harvey Weinstein.
The top tier of the rape culture pyramid is explicit violence. Rape culture is a culture in which violations of consent are normalized, as well as taking agency away from people and their choices.
Consent is an agreement between all parties engaged in a sexual activity to engage in that activity. Consent is permission that is sober, spoken, conscious, willingly given, continuous, revocable, absolutely required, and is never assumed.
But rape culture doesn't just consist of the explicit violence of rape or molestation. So how did we get here? The bottom tier of the rape culture pyramid is normalization. Normalization includes rape jokes, small sayings like boys will be boys, and victim blaming.
While normalization is most easily seen in places like Payton, these actions can lead directly into the next level of the pyramid, degradation. Degradation is anything from catcalling to stalking to non-consensual photos. To degrade someone is to treat them with less respect, and this lack of respect can take away their autonomy, which is seen in the next level of the pyramid.
The third tier is a removal of autonomy, or independence, from someone, which involves sexual coercion, groping, threatening, and any other actions that take away or attempt to take away a person's ability to make their own decisions.
Sexual assaults are not isolated incidents. The attitudes and actions on the bottom tiers reinforce and excuse those higher up.
Rape culture exists in every space and institution. Even at Payton, where we may feel removed from current conversation, rape culture is still prevalent. These are all real, anonymous accounts written by current students at Payton.
I was at a birthday party with some of my Payton friends, and nearing the end of the party, one of my friends decided to bring out his yearbook. At first, they weren't being too harmful and just talking about their friends and what they're like. Eventually, they started objectifying and talking about the girls in our grade in a very sexual and rapey way. I was extremely uncomfortable the entire time because they were talking about some of my close friends in an extremely objectifying way, acting as if they didn't have a personality and were just something to have sex with. After I left the party, I told some of my close friends, and their only response was, "They're boys, it's only natural." Or maybe the girls just shouldn't act so slutty and thoughty all the time. In the end, I was just really baffled that my friends would say those kinds of things and defend this kind of behavior.
I've been told to cover up while in the presence of boys to not draw attention.
I was sitting at lunch with a group of my friends. Somehow the statistic that 1 in every 4 women will or has been sexually assaulted came up. The boys at the table started joking around, guessing who would be the 1 out of the 4 girls at the table.
When my younger brother, who was 12 years old, saw me trying on a pair of shorts, he said, "Why are you wearing those? You look like a slut."
The fact that guys and girls feel it is 100% okay to joke about rape, sexual orientation, gender identity, ethnicity, or to comment and compare on girls' bodies is just not okay. Though, when I do try to confront people, I'm seen as the bad guy, the one who is overreacting for not taking such comments in a comedic manner, but in a serious and hurtful way. Well, it's not funny and I'm not overreacting. And that's the thing, these comments do not just go unnoticed to the ones receiving them. I know personally it makes me feel small. It makes me feel that I have no power to change such disgusting behavior and that my opinion does not matter, which ultimately sends me to a simple feeling of weakness. I don't want to feel this way. I don't want to feel like I'm wrong or stupid for bringing attention to such topics which genuinely break a person. It's not funny. Joking about rape or any other serious social issue isn't funny. It's real, it's painful, and it's not going away. So speaking from the perspective of many other individuals, it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be stopped.
2 men pulled up to me and asked me if I was 18.
I said no and walked away. They followed me in their car and then got out and followed me on foot. I ended up making it home safely, but I felt uncomfortable, scared, and sick.
I've been threatened into sending nudes, which made me feel helpless and that the only thing about me that means anything is my body.
The other day while I was walking home from the train, I was catcalled. I felt violated in that moment since my body is not there for them.
I felt pressured into doing things with boys that I have not felt comfortable with. I've always thought that I was confident enough to say no, but in the moment it's a lot harder than it seems.
My sister was sexually assaulted by her friend while she was a student at Payton.
We were hanging out after work. I was leaving. We had become close over the summer as friends. I gave him a hug and he took it too far. I was dating one of his friends, but we weren't super exclusive. He felt that I wanted more than a hug and he grabbed my butt. In that moment, I was shocked and pushed him away. He said, "Oh, you seemed like you wanted to do that." He kept sending me text messages afterwards trying to apologize. What will make him think that that was okay? What actions did I do that sent him that message? I blamed myself, thinking about how I should have acted to prevent it.
A friend of mine has been raped by someone.
You might be asking yourself, how do we combat rape culture? So here are some ideas from Payton students.
We combat rape culture by not teaching people it's the victim's fault, but by teaching people not to rape other people.
I think that to battle rape culture here at Payton, guys that objectify girls should be called out by other guys, and I feel like that would have a really powerful impact because when your friends don't agree with something you're saying or they're not feeling something you're saying, then they're going to stop. So I think that that's a really big part of what we need to do to change that culture here at Payton.
So I think some things to combat rape culture at Payton could be think before you speak, be an upstander rather than a bystander, especially if you see a friend saying something or doing something that's wrong. You can tell them, hey, like, you shouldn't be doing that, or hey, can you please stop that? That's making other people and me uncomfortable.
I think it's important to recognize that someone's decision to express themselves, whether it's physically expressing their sexuality or just through the way that they dress, that decision and that freedom that they have with their own body does not mean that they are responsible when someone comes along and violates that trust or takes the ability to choose away from them.
The stud-slut dichotomy plays a role in the normalization of rape culture by encouraging boys to pursue and act upon their sexual desires, sometimes without consent, as a way of gaining social status while simultaneously discouraging girls from acting upon their sexual desires. Perpetuating this dichotomy can involve high-fiving boys hooking up with girls or treating those girls in a judgmental manner. As a boy, you can prevent this perpetuation by refusing high fives from friends for hooking up with someone, or standing up for the person who you hook up with if they're not treated correctly based on the slut perception. This can be difficult at times, especially when you're a large group of people because of social pressure, but remember that it's really important in ensuring that your female counterparts are treated equally.
Don't use actions that are higher up on the rape culture pyramid to dismiss your own actions that you might think are not as bad.
Don't send unsolicited nudes because no one asked for them.
You teach people to not let cop-outs like boys will be boys, or say that the girl shouldn't have been wearing something, or that what they were doing was the cause of what happened. They weren't raped because of anything that they did. They were raped because someone chose to violate them and not see them as a person.
One way we can combat rape culture is if you're in a situation where you're in a locker room or a sports team, try not to be that person who, just because a person who doesn't identify with you isn't there, don't talk smack, don't say anything crazy, because you don't want them to say awful things behind your back. You have to practice being a good person.
Although it shouldn't have to be people's responsibility to not be sexually assaulted or raped, sometimes it's good to be supportive of your friends in certain situations. So if you're at somewhere and you're not sure that someone is able to give consent at that moment, then make sure that you're stepping in for your friend and you're you know, looking out for them and maybe saying like, hey, I don't think you should do that, I don't think you're in a good place to do that. Or vice versa, saying, hey, like, I don't think you should go for that, that person doesn't seem like they're in the place to give you consent. So it's about being able to give consent, but also being able to read when other people are or aren't able to give consent.
Potential solution would be just like have like healthy conversations about the topic and not necessarily act as it's taboo and as if like it only applies to a certain group of people, because I think it affects everyone. It should affect everyone because it should matter to everyone, regardless of gender and sexuality. It should be important because it's just like being a decent human being.
One way to combat rape culture is by refraining from making vulgar comments about the clothing people wear to school. They should feel comfortable with what they put on their bodies and should never feel unsafe from comments that are made about them.
It's important to not only not participate in the activities on the lower tier of the rape culture pyramid, but also to understand why those things have such a negative effect on your community.
Also, in general, you should respect people's personal space, especially in casual situations. So, like, I know we've all said things that we shouldn't have, but that doesn't necessarily mean you're a bad person. I think the important thing is to grow and learn from the situation. Just focus on creating a respectful and welcoming environment at Payton.
When in a social environment, I believe it is very important to be very respectful of another person's space. Do not assume what another person wants just based on their actions, clothes, or anything other than verbal consent.
One thing that I think is really important in trying to combat rape culture is ending rape jokes. I've heard people use the word rape to say things like, that test raped me, or something like that, which is really upsetting because it's invalidating the experiences of people who have actually gone through sexual assault and rape by comparing it to something like that.
When I was in middle school, the environment that I was in didn't really give me exposure to issues of rape culture. So when I came to Payton, I didn't really know much about this issue. And the way I became educated about it was through discussions I had within like pals and conversations with my peers and my teachers. So if you see or hear something, someone saying something that's that contributes to normalizing these issues, you need to call them out and let them know that what they said was wrong. The person may not know that what they said was wrong, and educating your peers can help all of us work to end the systematic issue.
I think the bottom line is just respecting someone's autonomy over their own body. No one has the right to someone else's body. No one has the right to talk about someone else's body in a derogatory fashion. No one else has the right to comment on what someone's wearing. And no one has the right to take someone's power away from them in a moment through sexual assault or harassment.
A large-scale issue in our society that won't be easily resolved, but I think at Payton we can do a better job. I definitely felt that I've grown a lot from coming first to Payton versus how I interact with everyone now. My old school, like that, it was just a level of immaturity that certain jokes and certain comments were okay, but coming to Payton I realized that it's not my life necessarily that is affected, but it could be someone else's who could mean something to me, or maybe I don't really know them, but it's still a human being.
We all contribute to rape culture, and we all need to hold ourselves accountable.
We encourage you to ask yourself, how do you contribute to rape culture? And what will you do today to combat it?